Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Hope you're doing well and keeping safe on this Thursday. In today's news show, Raheem Sterling and Gabriel Jesus both linked to Chelsea via Matt Law in The Telegraph. We've got some more defensive and midfield targets to get through. Before we get into today's show, make sure you hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. Also, do me a massive favor by hitting that like button because it helps more people find the channel. But let's get into it. Firstly here, Matt Law, we were speaking about one of his reports for The Telegraph the other day, Tuchel getting more control over transfers from Hyperbole. Today, exclusive, Chelsea interested in Raheem Sterling with Man City exit possible. Europe's top clubs believe Raheem Sterling is ready to leave Man City this summer, with Chelsea among those weighing up a bid. Sterling has 1 year remaining on his City contract, and although the England international is yet to indicate his intention over his future, there is a growing feeling among top clubs that he will consider a move away. Sterling is not the only option under consideration for Chelsea. Ousmane Dembele, Christopher Nkunku and Barcelona target Robert Lewandowski have also been discussed, while Sterling City teammate Gabriel Jesus, who is wanted by Arsenal, has been offered to the club. Tuchel is open to allowing Romelu Lukaku to return to Inter Milan, but Chelsea are aware it would be difficult to replace the Belgian with a top-class out-and-out striker. Sterling is an intriguing option given he has hit double figures in the Premier League in each of his last 5 seasons and is about to enter what many still consider to be a footballer's prime years. He has 109 goals and 56 assists in 320 appearances in the Premier League for City and Liverpool. There's been a lot of reaction to this, quite passionate reaction. Firstly, I think negative on both Jesus and Sterling, particularly Sterling, labelling them City rejects. If they're not good enough for Man City, why would they be good enough for Chelsea? There's that side of it. People looking back to the Champions League final with Raheem Sterling and saying, well, he didn't turn up on that game, so he can't be good enough for Chelsea. Some of the other arguments in terms of style of play, is it actually what Chelsea need this summer? Are they the top level players that Chelsea should be going after if we're going to sign an attacker, be that Ousmane Dembele, Robert Lewandowski and Nkunku? People believing that those would be better options for Chelsea this summer. On both fronts, I think both Jesus and Sterling, although I think they offer different things and I think there are pros and cons for both players, there are about 4 things that for both of them I think are pros and would make them suitable attacking options in what is such an awkward area for Chelsea to invest in again because of what's gone wrong. Over 300 million worth of investment since January 2019, and it's fair to point out that Chelsea's attack has not got much better since we spent that amount of money. Not drastically better. I mean, it hasn't even reached the levels of, say, pre that spend, or you look back to, say, obviously the last title win. Sterling and Jesus on both fronts, they're used to the Premier League, firstly. They know the league. There's going to be no culture shock if either of them were to sign for Chelsea tomorrow, and they wouldn't know what to make of the league, which has been a problem for several Chelsea attackers recently, of moving from one league where they've been so dominant in that style of league, or just whatever it is, the surroundings, the environment has suited their game, but they come to Chelsea, different story. Timo Werner's probably the best example. I think Hakim Ziyech has dealt with this. I think Pulisic has as well. Lukaku this season. There have been problems adapting from one league to another. So you don't have that with those two players. They have proven themselves capable of being very good in the Premier League, and at least, very effective in their systems. And number 2, they're used to a possession style of play. They are used to playing in a team that has a lot of the ball. That kind of links to the adaptation to the Premier League. But Chelsea are a team under Thomas Tuchel that does want a lot of the ball and will have to break down low defences. That's another point I want to make, is that these are two attackers who 9 times out of 10, like Chelsea, have to deal with defences sitting pretty deep and having to break them down. Again, not a culture shock for someone like, Timo Werner's the best example. In the Bundesliga, was able to run from the halfway line one-on-one with the keeper. How many times has he been able to do that at Chelsea? That's obviously a problem for him. I don't think it would be a problem for Jesus or Sterling. That is one of the big benefits of buying within the league. And I think, just generally, for these players, I think what makes them more, I think, accustomed to coming to Chelsea than maybe others is also pressing. They're used to pressing, and I've seen some claims that, well, Raheem Sterling, Jesus, the increased defensive demands are going to be ridiculous for them. How are they going to be able to cope? Quite clearly, people don't watch City that often and don't understand their game. They press from the front, which means that the attacking players have to do a lot of work, like Chelsea's attackers are expected to do under Thomas Tuchel. Again, it's not something they're not used to doing. It's not a Lukaku situation where they come into Chelsea and they'd be asked to do something that physically and, in terms of their attributes, they've never really been that good at doing or effective at doing. So again, if your kind of important thing this summer is profile and making sure that the players Chelsea signed fit into what Thomas Tuchel wants to do, then I feel that both of these players in different ways could be quite effective. I think both are flexible. They've proven themselves capable of playing along a front three. Sterling more so than Gabriel Jesus. He's predominantly played as a centre forward, but has played off the right for Pep Guardiola this season. So you'd think that Jesus would be more so fighting for that, centre spot with maybe Kai Havertz if Lukaku was to leave, or we don't know what's going to happen with Brozier yet. But you'd think Kai and him. And as well, the good thing about buying a player like Jesus is that I think at times I've looked at that attack, and sometimes when Tuchel's having to make changes, and his general problem is when you take a first choice out and you put a second choice in and those two players don't match, so you're losing something with either one, like drastically, like in terms of styles. That was a problem with Lukaku, right? Between Lukaku and Havertz, they offered different things, and that was an awkward thing for Tuchel to solve across last season. With Jesus and Havertz, they are different players, but I feel like they would still give you similar things, like, as I say, the pressing, the understanding of playing within a possession system, the ability to move and be a little bit more fluid, which is a word people like to use a lot when they talk about not only Pep's system, but Tuchel's system at its best, particularly in that front three where you see Mount, Werner, Havertz, Ziyech, Pulisic, particularly that Champions League winning run where it was sometimes hard to gauge who was the centre forward. It wasn't that obvious. So if Tuchel's moving back in that direction post Lukaku, then both of these players I think would work with that. And listen, I still think that Ousmane Dembele is one of the names that if Chelsea are going to sign two attackers this summer, and it all connects back to Lukaku. If we cannot sell Lukaku, maybe we're just getting one attacker, and maybe that might be Ousmane Dembele because you don't have the transfer fee within there, and I think that would make sense. But it's such an awkward problem for Chelsea to gauge and to deal with this summer. I think we all know what should probably happen for the best of the player, the club. Everything involved with Lukaku is that it's probably best he moves on. But does that actually happen? The finances involved. There still is an if over that. I think a lot of us expect it to happen because it just feels like it's heading in that direction. But that could obviously halt Chelsea's business. And, when you've got Jesus being targeted by the likes of Tottenham, apparently, and particularly Arsenal, who it's quite clear they've been targeting him, one of these targets may be gone soon. So I'm interested to see how this develops. I think Sterling, the goal return, I do want to make this point because I think some people, particularly on the case of Sterling, look at him and they say, well, he scores all of his goals because of Pep's system. And Pep's system is wonderful. It's improved players. You look at that team, how productive a lot of players are. It's obviously, it's not an individual game. It's a team game, and the system that Pep has been able to cultivate and grow is based on a lot of players producing for the system. But you look at the goals that Sterling has scored, and I still think that there needs to be some responsibility and credit placed on the players. Pep is not holding a PS5 controller like playing FIFA career mode and scoring the goals himself. These players still have to get into the right positions. They still need to finish chances. And if we're going to credit some of our own players like Christian Pulisic for his anticipation inside the box, then I think you have to credit Sterling. It's always one of these weird things. It's like, it's the same why people can't explain with Tammy Abraham. People talk down Tammy Abraham, but wherever he goes in his career, he just seems to score goals. And I think if a player continues to score goals and continues to be quite productive, I think that makes a good player, at least a very effective player, which is what you want, particularly in an attack that just hasn't clicked. There are more advanced things with this. I think Tuchel has to adapt his system to be a lot more free-flowing, a lot more risky, and allow that expression, because no matter who you buy, if Chelsea just continue to play in quite a passive way, we may be proven wrong. You put a different profile of player in there, you put a Jesus, you put a Sterling, you put a Dembele in there, and we play similar to how we do this season, maybe that talent, excels the system, and that's the difference. But I still think that it needs to be a sense Chelsea are going to go at games a lot more. And part of that, I think, is recruiting players who absolutely suit our style of play. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Before we wrap up today, Ben Jacobs once again reporting here. This obviously is linked into Lukaku and in terms of maybe having some sort of swap deal where Lukaku goes one way, Chelsea get a player in return, which maybe makes the deal more favourable for Inter financially and helps Chelsea out. In terms of centre-backs, Milan Skriniar has apparently been offered to Chelsea if Chelsea pursue a swap deal. They prefer not to lose Lautaro Martinez, who of course a great attacker at Inter Milan, who has been linked to Chelsea before, and as Ben Jacobs pointed out, it's a little bit strange because Lukaku had such a great relationship with Martinez, and it would just feel so weird to see Martinez coming one way and Lukaku going another when they, as I say, they formed quite a good relationship under Antonio Conte. I think Skriniar is another name mentioned. De Ligt was another one mentioned by Matt Lord the other day. We spoke about Koulibaly, didn't we, last week, and still to me, I think that deal, it really hasn't got going at all, to be honest. That name, I'm not hearing it. When Matt Law's running through all these targets, and the targets that I'm hearing from other reliable sources is his name is not really coming up. I think it's more of a fan-led thing of looking at a situation at Napoli and looking at the fact that Thiago Silva's liked some post and sort of making a link there. So we have to wait and see if that catches steam, but I do think that's one to look out for over the summer and could be a shrewd piece of business if Chelsea are wanting to spend money as well elsewhere. Potentially that deal could be done for an aging player who might want to be on the move this summer and might be able to join Chelsea. Lastly, midfield. We spoke a lot about midfield and what's going to happen this summer. Some of you asked me questions over the weekend for my Q&A. And I mentioned Billy Gilmour, Ethan Ampadu, the internal solutions if Chelsea cannot get Declan Rice since Aurelien Tchouameni signed for Real Madrid. And a name that has been mentioned in my comments and has been linked by Sky Sports now, Chelsea and Manchester United interested in PSV and Ivory Coast midfielder Ibrahim Sangar has been linked to Chelsea, as well as Manchester United, who are interested in the PSV and Ivory Coast midfielder. Sangar is believed to have a 35 million release clause in his contract and also been linked in a Dutch media with Liverpool and Newcastle. A source close to the 24-year-old said the player has his heart set on moving to England and is convinced he will be a Premier League player next season. This is a player that, based on stats accounts and data accounts I follow and analysis on Twitter, this is a name that consistently gets brought up as an exciting player that could be available and big clubs should be going in for rather than maybe more expensive targets like Declan Rice. Again, you look back to last summer with Tchouameni and Chelsea passing on Tchouameni and thinking he wasn't ready and waiting a year, and how costly that decision has proved to be given the price of Tchouameni now and also the fact that Chelsea were just basically out of the race because of the sanctions, it felt like. So they've lost a key target there. There's an interesting breakdown from Breaking the Lines, which they do a lot of great profiles and tactical breakdowns and scout reports basically of players. I definitely suggest go and read that if you want to learn more about the player and what he could bring to Chelsea. I know some of you have brought up his name. Again, midfield is one of those areas where it's weird to me because if you'd asked me 2 or 3 months ago, I would have said midfield and defence would have been the 2 key areas, and I would have been saying central midfield, that's first up, that's first priority. But the contract situation, Tchouameni a target going, and it seems like at the moment midfield is the last area being linked. You're even hearing some wing backs being linked to Chelsea. It's kind of that one position which to me it just feels a little bit bizarre. We've heard nothing so far. Matt Law did mention that Declan Rice's name is in there, and we don't know what Chelsea are going to do. They may try and test West Ham's resolve with Rice as his contract continues to run down every year, but it still feels like that would be such a mega deal. And Sangar, he could turn out to be a hidden gem. And Chelsea don't sign a lot of those type of players. And Man United themselves under Ten Hag want to get a central midfielder. They have a similar problem to Chelsea in terms of feeling like for years and years and years they've sort of lacked that profile of a defensive midfielder. But given you see all these links to maybe more creative midfielders they're going after, an opportunity could open up here for Chelsea. If you have watched Sangar and are experts on him, let me know in the comments below. Do you think this would be sort of an unexpected name Chelsea should go after this summer that could prove to really help Chelsea in midfield in the coming years? Let me know in the comments below. But that is it for this edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you again very soon. All the best.